Hello, I'm Betty Hager Francis, and I serve as Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Health, Human Services, and Education. I work for County Executive Rashern L. Baker, and I would like to thank Mr. Baker right now for his devotion to education and for convening us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Also with us this evening are Prince George's County Board of Education member Curtis Valentine. We have Board of Education member Dr. Beverly Anderson. I believe we have Board of Education member Lupe Grady. Lupe. We have Senator Paul Pinsky. We have a great group here this evening. We have Councilwoman Denny Tavares. Oh, Delegate Ann Healy. Former Secretary of State John McDonough and Mary Lou McDonough. And if I've missed anyone, I apologize. We have our CAO, our Chief Administrative Officer, Nicholas Majette. At this time, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening for this important conversation about right-sizing our county's investment in our children and our schools. I'd like to ask Senator Pinsky if he'd bring us a few remarks.
Thank you, Betty, and thank all of you for taking the time to be here tonight. It says to me that you care. And in fact, more than caring, I would bet you are leaders in your community, whether you acknowledge that or not. That you took the time to put other things aside and come out and hear new information and hopefully give your opinion is very important. And my guess is people on your block, in your neighborhood, are also asking you, what should we do? So I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. As some of you know, prior to joining the state legislature and state senate, I was a teacher. I still consider myself a teacher. I taught for 20 years here in Prince George's County, Fairmont Heights and High Point and Central and many other places. So my heart is very close to improving the school system. While I don't work for County Executive Baker as my predecessor, we're longtime friends, a person I really respect and trust, and I'm glad he's here in our district tonight. He's been a friend of the 22nd District, as all of you have been. So again, I want to welcome you and particularly point out my colleague from the House of Delegates who also lives in Hyattsville, has represented Hyattsville for 24 years, I believe. Again, Ann Healy, Delegate Ann Healy. So thank you. I know there's a lot of information. I think at this point, I'm supposed to pass it on to the county council member whose district you're in, Denny Tavares. Denny, please come up. Thank you, Denny.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for coming here and hosting this event, and I think this is incredibly important. Thank you to Principal Teresa Merrifield for hosting us today. I really love coming here. This is a great place to be always at Nicholas Oram. I just want to thank all the members who made it out and taken out your time to be here. It's really important, especially since I'm one of the people that's going to be making this decision whether to support this or not. I just really do thank you for coming out, and I really want to hear what everyone here has to say regarding this. I think that providing an education for our children is the most critical thing we can do in this county. And I just want to take some time to repeat what I'm saying in Spanish to welcome some of the community members here. Hola, mi nombre es Denny Taveras, soy concejal del Distrito 2. Gracias por venir esta noche acá. Estamos aquí, bienvenido con el concejal ejecutivo del condado, Rashern Baker, de la Junta Escolar, Curtis Valentine, y varios personales de la oficina central ejecutiva de la administración de Baker. Quiero dejarles saber que estamos aquí, yo soy una de las personas que va a tomar esta decisión y necesito saber qué es lo que ustedes opinan sobre este tema tan importante. So, por favor, siéntanse libres de comunicarse conmigo y denme su opinión. Just, again, reach out to me, let me know what you think, let me know where you stand and how you feel about this proposal. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming out tonight. And I'm supposed to pass it on to...
I'm back. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Councilmember Tavares. I understand that the former school board member, Kathy Birch, is here with us this evening. And I'd also like to recognize the president of Prince George's County Educators Association, Kenneth Haynes. Mr. Kenneth Haynes. So we'd really like to thank Principal Teresa Merrifield and the entire staff of the Nicholas Orem Middle School for hosting this evening's conversation, and ask Ms. Merrifield to bring us greetings and provide some brief remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. ¿Cómo está? Un poquito español. That one. Well, good afternoon to you. Good evening. I'm so happy that everyone is here this evening with us. Welcome to the home of the Mighty Falcons, where we believe in our intelligence and we stand on our character. Thank you so much for coming out this evening to hear about the great possibilities that may occur if we're able to receive this additional funding. I'm speaking to you this evening not only as the principal of Nicholas Orem Middle School, but also as a resident of Prince George's County, also having my children to attend Prince George's County schools. So just as you, I am here to hear what the great possibilities are across our county. Also, I know what the benefits would be for us here at Nicholas Orem. If we're able to receive this additional funding, potentially we may receive somewhere close to $140,000 of additional funding for our students. Those of you who have been in this community for a while, you know that in the past 3 years, our population has grown from 700 in 2013 to this year. We have right now presently 883 students in our building, and we're slated to have approximately 1,000 students next year. Needless to say, we need the money. We definitely need it. We are also a Title I school, which means that the majority of my students are receiving free and reduced meals. Approximately 90% of my students are Title I. So with that being said, we're also a part of the TEDL Digital Learning Program, where we've gone one-to-one with the iPads, introducing technology to our students to prepare them for the 21st century so that they might be able to compete with anyone, anywhere across the United States. And this year, we suffered a little bit with that because I only had approximately 750 iPads in my building. Yet my number is 883. We're slated to get an additional $100,000. I need it. That's just for the digital learning process of it. The majority of my students are ESOL students, English Second Language learners. And so it's a huge component of being able to give them the knowledge that they need, not only in their native language, but also in the English language, so that they're comfortable as they transition into the United States, and they know that they are welcomed and that we want the best for them. And it's essential that we're able to utilize those funds not only for the students, but also for professional development for our teachers, so they're also culturally sensitive to meet the needs of our students. And I will tell you, just as I'm looking in the back of the room, several of my teachers are here right now, and they're not being paid to be here, but they care, and they're dedicated. So if my staff could just wave their hands around, and my assistant principals back there, they're all around on the other side. Our community outreach person is here as well. We are a family, and that's what we tell our children. And I have even some of my students are here. I see one baby in the back and one of my former students who will never leave my side. Love you. He's in high school now, but anytime we have anything, he is right here with us, with his mom. And that's the dedication that we want to build within our community. And so I know that with the additional funding, it sounds wonderful and great. I know it's going to be an impact on my pocket as well as a property owner in Prince George's County. But you have a choice. Either you invest in your children now, or we're going to pay for it later in one way or the other. And that's really the bottom line to it. So you have educators that are committed to the cause. Please give us what we need to move our children forward, to give them the best education possible. We have great visionaries in our county executive and in our CEO. Can I say Dr. Golson? Dr. Golson is here from plant operations, so she knows what I need in terms of being able to make this facility great. But none of this can be done without the additional funding. So thank you so much for coming this evening. If you have any questions or concerns, I'll be around if you'd like to say anything later. Thank you so much. And thank you to my ID, Mr. Baldwin, for being here as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Merrifield. So I suppose you've gathered that I am acting as your moderator this evening. I wanted to let you know that we have translation services actually in the back in the right, and our new education policy advisor, Tahani Colazo, is providing that service. Thank you, Tahani. We appreciate it. I'm sorry? Yeah, go ahead.
Para esos que no entienden inglés, hay servicios de traducción atrás con Tejani Collazo. So, si necesita alguien que le traduzca, por favor, váyase atrás. Gracias.
Thank you so much. So this evening, the way we're kind of organized this evening is that I'll be reading questions or comments from the cards that people filled out as they came in. According to the county executive's ground rules, we're going to read every question, and everyone is going to be answered. We may, if we get two similar questions, 2 or 3, we'll group them together. But in general, every question is going to be answered as it was written on the card. And if at the end of our allotted time, we have time, after we've gone through all the questions, we may be able to open the floor for a bit more dialogue. Before we begin our discussion this evening, I'd like to just give a little brief background as to why we're actually here tonight. As you know, in March of this year, County Executive Baker introduced his 2016 budget proposal, which includes a dramatic increase in funding for Prince George's County Public Schools. The proposed investment of over $130 million is intended to move our school system from consistently being ranked 23rd out of 24th to being in the top 10 in Maryland by 2020. The rapid improvement of our school system will occur as a result of implementing the programs in the school system's new strategic plan. The funds from the tax increase that we're going to talk about will be used to implement programs in the strategic plan. This tax increase is going to require a sacrifice from each and every one of us in the county. It's going to call for a 15-cent increase in the real property tax rate, an increase of 38 cents in the personal property tax rate, and an increase of 4% in the telecommunications tax. But it's for our children, and our children are worth it. I now have the privilege of introducing to you Prince George's County Executive Rashern L. Baker III, who will provide remarks.
Thank you. I I think Principal Merriweather just summed it up very well. And so I think she made my opening statement, which I would make. The only thing I would add is the budget that we're talking about tonight, the increase as from the property tax, telecommunications tax, and the business tax, all of that money, 100%, goes toward education. None of the things that we're talking about in terms of the investment and increases will go to the general budget. That becomes important, as Councilwoman Taveras will tell you, is that the budget that I submitted to them, in addition to the $133 million we expect to gain in the education, also on the other side, the general budget, which deals with our roads, health, social services, every function of our government, that budget has been cut. The only investments that we have are in our public safety. And as Director Mary Lou of our corrections will tell you, that investment is not a big investment in public safety. We've asked Mary Lou and her colleagues to continue over the last 5 years to cut their departments by 5%. We didn't stop this year. We also asked them to cut. The police department, fire department, sheriff's department, state's attorney are all getting a slight bump up. Only education is being increased. It also means on the general side that we have proposed to the county council that we actually release 110 actual individuals with real jobs and real mortgages to fix our structural budget deficit that we're facing in the county. We also are proposing on the general side that they do 5 days of furloughs, including myself and those who work for the government. So I want to paint that picture to show you how serious we are about making the hard choices and living within our means in the county government. On the flip side of that, what we face and the reason that we haven't rebounded in the economy as much as our surrounding neighbors have, it's not because of crime, because crime is down in the last 4 years. Violent crime down 36% over the last 4 years. Overall crime down 40%. Now, I may have inversed those numbers, but it's around there. Economic development, we talked about whether it's MGM, which is a $1.2 billion development, or a hospital, which thanks to folks like Delegate Healy and Senator Paul Penske, we're going to be able to get money back for that hospital, which is a $650 million investment in Largo, which we'll bring in here. The Whole Foods that's going to open, Laurel with development coming. So we have all these developments on its way into the county, and the possibility of actually bringing a $2 billion project, which is the FBI. So we're doing the things right. The area that we have lagged behind for so long is our education system. That is why it is the only area that we're actually raising revenues to invest in. And so I want to make sure in the outset that you understand that actually none of this money will go to help Thomas Himmler, who is our Deputy CAO for Finance and Budget, to deal with the gap of, how much is our budget gap, 115 million? We have a $115 million budget gap. None of this money we're talking about tonight can help us deal with that problem. It will all go to invest into education. So as we get into the discussion, I want you to remember that, and I probably will repeat it, because there will be questions, as there were, about why can't we use this to shave off the 110 individuals that we proposed to the council. Well, we can't do that because the money can't be used for that. It can only be used for education. It is the only thing it can be used for. With that, I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
So now let's start here we go.
Oh, let me just do one more thing. We've done this throughout. So we have a list of questions here. Sometimes the answers are long, and I'll try to shorten the answer as best I can. Most of the time I'll look at Thomas and ask him to come and provide background. But one of the things I've promised that each one of these, after we go through the questions that are written here, if you still have questions, I promise you I will stay here as long as the principal allows me to, and we'll answer every question you have, because I don't want you to leave here, whether you support it or don't, without having your question answered. So I promise you, if you don't get an answer you like and we move on to the question, I won't move from this spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. And before we actually start with the first question, I want to introduce Dr. Monica Golson, who's Chief Operating Officer for the Prince George's County Public Schools, and who will also be helping us with answering questions. So the first question is, how does this impact the TRIM law? Do you anticipate a challenge?
No. No. No, we've actually got an Attorney General's opinion that says that we can actually, because of the legislation that was passed in Annapolis in 2012, as long as we're using the funds for education, it does not impact TRIM. For those of you who may or may not know, we have a tax cap in the county, and that's our TRIM. If we were overriding TRIM, I could actually use money to deal with our general budget. And some of the fiscal problems we have there. But we can't. It can only be used for education, and we got an Attorney General's opinion to make sure that, one, we can do this, two, the council votes on it. Your representatives on the county council are the voice of the people to vote on up or down on this proposal.
Thank you. Getting Prince George's education system from number 23 to the top 10 would be considered by many to be a miracle. Exactly how, again, do you propose to do this?
I'm going to let Curtis answer that. What I will say is this. When we talked to Dr. Maxwell, what we said was, give us a proposal that will move us up, but also tell us line item by line item where that's going to go and how that impacts us moving up. And that's the budget proposal that the school board voted on. That's the budget proposal that Dr. Maxwell submitted to us. And that's without changing a line item. We asked difficult questions of them in each one, right, Thomas? But we didn't change the bottom line. We asked them to explain each figure in there, where it's going. With that, Curtis?
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I'm Curtis Valentine. I come to this role on the school from being a teacher, so I could. That's fine. So I come to this role as a former 8th grade language arts teacher here in Prince George's County as well, like Senator Pinsky. I'm also a parent of 2 children currently in our school system. My children are 6 and 4. So I'm in this role for the long haul, and I also have a spouse who works in the school system. When I moved here about 7 years ago, one of the things that I heard over and over again was, Prince George's County is a great place to live, but the schools suck. I'm sure you all have heard this before, and I heard it over and over and over again. And I would say, after a while, I said, so what are you doing about it? And people would get quiet. So what are we doing about it? We speak so confidently about what's wrong, but rarely do we speak secondarily about what we're doing about it. And then my children moved into the school system, and then they would still insult the school system knowing my children were in the school system to my face. You put your kids in a school system like that? What's wrong with you? At the same time, my wife is waking up every morning, going to school, educating children, working very hard with less. So as I come to this position and I come here tonight, I come to you all thinking about what we're doing about what we all believe, as County Executive Baker said, is the most important part of what we're doing here, which is really educating our children. Children who, in many cases, don't vote. They don't really have a voice. And you look in the room, there's only a handful of them there. But I think this forum would be best spent during the school day, having many of you come in here and see the size of our classes, the work the teachers are doing, the principals doing, working lunch duty at the same time trying to answer calls from parents who are concerned about their children. So when County Executive Baker talks about, and the question about, particularly about how we get to the top 10, there are sort of some very quantitative measures that we can choose. For example, over the last year, we've had the largest increase in graduation rate of any district in the state, about 2.5%. That's across the county. We have 26 high schools, which is the second largest high school numbers in the state. And we're competing with some districts only have 1 high school or 2 high schools. So in order to make that leap, we had to have consistent increases across high schools. Central High School went up 8 points. Largo High School went up 4 points. We have high schools that are going 4 and 5 points. So if we can keep that average, 2.5, 3 points over the next 5 years, we will be a top 10 district for high school graduation. Why do I think that we'll get there in 5 years? Why do I think that we'll have 5 years of 2.5? Well, we have a lag indicator, an indicator that shows you if we move on this level, then our graduation will grow up, and that is our 9th grade passage rate. If you do not pass 9th grade, there's an 85% chance that you won't graduate on time. But our 9th grade passage rate went up 4 points. And if we can continue 4 points every year at our 9th grade passage rate, and the work that we're doing to really ensure that we have 9th grade academies, and if anyone who works in the high school or our high school administrators know, we have put an emphasis in supporting our students, particularly in 9th grade. I'm a former 8th grade language arts teacher, and I know when students came to me in 8th grade, to close the gap that I was trying to close with by the time they got to 9th grade was virtually impossible. So if we can continue that graduation rate and continue to invest in our children, as well as invest in early child development, which really cuts down on your students who are going to be in special education, students who are going to be left behind, students who have those reading problems, that really following them all the way from kindergarten all the way up to high school. And when you're behind 2 and 3 grade levels, that actually it catches you in high school. So I think very quantitatively that we can get there, but also someone who's worked in the classroom and understand what it takes to really to drive change. It's really the teacher and the student and the teacher and that parent. And this budget invests both in that relationship between the teacher and the parent, but more importantly, between the teacher and the student, and really investing in professional development and keeping teachers in our classroom longer. I'll finally say, we really try to invest in retention of our teachers. We lost 7,000 teachers over the last 7 years. 7,000. And every teacher is 30 or 90 students who no longer have the same teacher anymore. Parents who are going and saying, well, Ms. Johnson was a teacher yesterday. Who's teacher today? Well, Ms. Smith we'll be a long-term sub now, and then when we find someone to fill a position, we'll come in and we'll get someone else to do it. And a student who's built a rapport with the teacher saying, what happened to Ms. Johnson? Where did she go? So when I look at what we're doing here, I'm thinking about it from my own position as a school teacher, understanding when I relate to my students, when I was a teacher, there was nothing more important to me. But also from parents saying, if we really want to have the longevity in how we improve our system, we have to have people stay in these roles. We need principals staying in the positions more than 1 or 2 years. We need more than just 8 superintendents in 14 years. 8 superintendents in 14 years? When our competition had 1 superintendent for 10 years? It takes time to get things to fall into place, but we have a new school board, we have reinvestment in our system, we have new parents coming in, we have staff who are sticking around, we have staff coming from the district trying to move into our system. This is the right time to do this, and I believe that we're going to get there in 5 years.
Let me do this. I'm going to ask Tom Himmler if he'll just read it. What we asked Dr. Maxwell to do is put a number by those areas he wants to invest his money in, so we know exactly where it's going. So Tom, if you could just tell us some of those areas that Dr. Maxwell put down.
Good evening. There's roughly about $20 million into what the principal actually talked about that goes directly in control by the principals. When she said earlier that they got about $140-some thousand, that's money that goes directly that she has control of. So there's about $21 million system-wide for principals to make decisions like that. There's also $20 million to try to retain our qualified teachers, because one of the things that happens is that folks get qualified, get experience, and they go somewhere else. And if you have a good principal or a good teacher, that goes a long way to hitting the goals that Mr. Valentine and County Executive have talked about. There's also money, $6 million for digital literacy to assist our students with that. There's about $3 million for career and college readiness. One of the things what we want to do is to equip our students to be ready for when they graduate to either go into a career or go into college. We already have a successful program at the community college now that is working well. We want to expand that to Bowie State, to the University of Maryland College Park, to again provide additional opportunities for students. There's a couple million, about $3 million for Healthy Start, essentially an expansion of Healthy Start, which is to provide students with a breakfast. And one thing, and I'll channel my inner Dr. Maxwell, is that if you have students being hungry at 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, they're not going to focus. So there's a lot of different things in this investment. And the universal pre-K, that's the other one I wanted to mention. There's $2 million to expand the universal pre-K program. We've already done a number of things like that in 6 communities in particular over the last couple of years, but this expands it. So there's a lot of things, but the one thing is it goes to the schools. It doesn't go to SASR, it doesn't go to administration. It goes into the schools where the learning and the academic results are that's what we're all about.
It was important for us to know that every dollar of the additional resources we're sending to school, it was a line item with where that money was going. That way we can have the checks and balances and we can have the monitoring of how we're doing the progress. Okay?
Let's welcome Delegate Alonzo Washington. Mr. Baker, what happened to funds from casinos?
Y'all gave me.
The mic.
Come on. That is my favorite question. It is the first thing, Thomas, come on up here. It is the first thing I asked Thomas. Thomas, where is my casino money? Because I could use that to help me out. Where's my money?
Let's kind of do casino funding 101. So the state of Maryland, has started a number of casinos over the last several years. They pay a tax. The tax goes to the state of Maryland. It goes into a fund, Education Trust Fund. So just follow the money. So I'm a casino operator. I pay taxes. Mr. Baker's the state of Maryland. He gets it, puts it in a special fund. Then the state of Maryland, when they adopt a budget each and every year, there's a formula that they fund for education. That money goes from the state and Mr. Baker to the school system. That's how it works. The casino money is only a small fraction of the education funding that the state of Maryland provides. There's about $5 billion a year, $5 billion with a B, that the state provides to the counties across the state. So far, there's about $250 to $300 million a year that goes into this education trust fund by the casinos. So it's a small portion of the funding, but as he said, for our money, it's restricted for education funding. So it is coming, but it's only as good as what the state funds under the formula each and every year. This year in particular, and Senator Pinsky and Delegate Healy and others worked hard with us to make modifications to the governor's proposed budget. Originally, he proposed cutting that formula $144 million statewide, $38 million to Prince George's County. In working with the General Assembly, they restored the vast majority of that. We're trying right now to get the governor to release $68 million statewide, $20 million to the county, to the school system. So it's only as good as what the General Assembly, and in this case, the governor will fund. But the money is sitting there in a trust fund, but it's only as good as the folk when they approve it and allocate the funds.
So the follow-up question is, but where is MGM money? Where's that casino money? Because part of what we did when we passed it was say, we're going to get $41 million, I think, in additional revenue coming into the county.
Right.
So that's what I said when I was campaigning and said, listen, we need this in here. So the follow-up question should be, where's my $41 million and why can't I use that?
Your money's coming. It's being built, but it's not there yet. So once it's up and running, we'll start getting the money that the county executive talked about, which will come straight to the county. But then there's also money that the MGM Casino will pay to the Education Trust Fund that will go to the state and then comes back to the school system once the state funds the formula. So it's not ready. It's not open yet. So once it's open, we are going to get the money from MGM that will come to us, but there's another pot that goes to the state.
So in plain language, that means MGM will not be up and running until late 2016. The revenues will not come into the county, the first portion of it, to maybe somewhere around 2017. We won't see the full of it until between 2018 and 2020. In fact, it probably will come in the full amount just in time enough for me to exit from being county executive. But if we had that money, could we use that money to put it toward education? The answer is yes, if we had it. But there's a big hole down in Fort Washington, right, Dr. Anderson? That's down there in Fort Washington right now, Oxon Hill. It has not been built yet. So that's why we can't use the MGM casino money for this.
Here's a related question, Mr. Baker and Mr. Himmler. How much money is given to the school system from the Maryland Lottery?
I mean, the Maryland Lottery, it's a little different. It goes into the state's general fund, and it becomes part of the overall kind of pot of money that goes and funds the school system. One of the things they learned from the lottery piece was, with the casinos, was to put it away into a special fund so that it is restricted. They can't take the money to do other things. But all that goes into funding. In our case, the school system gets about $1 billion a year from the state under the state aid formulas. So that money includes, lottery money, casino money, and other taxes that we pay that goes to the school system.
Thank you. Was any money requested from the developers of the new multi-million-dollar casino for education?
Well, the money that comes from MGM, as Tom explained, first goes into the money they're going to pay when we open MGM will go into the education trust fund at the state. Prince George's County will receive a portion of that money back here. And then the money we generate from MGM, the local impact dollars, we can use ourselves. So the short answer is yes, they're paying, but the education portion goes to the state and comes back to us. The $41 million is not here right now.
Thank you. How much money has the county received from multiple developers? Have developers been asked to build new schools in subdivisions where they are building, or to contribute repairs, technology updates, et cetera?
When there's new developments in the county, they pay what we call as an impact fee. It's just, so it's based on the number of units. So if I'm a developer and I'm going to go build 500-unit subdivision, I pay, if it's outside the Beltway, almost $16,000 per unit. If it's inside the Beltway, it's about slightly less than $9,000. So that money for education is restricted for education funding to either renovate schools or build new schools. So they are paying as development comes along. One of the things that's been a challenge for us is with the housing, when we experienced the housing crisis, very few new developments came online, so we weren't collecting as much money from it. But now that things have picked up with some new developments going on, we're starting to see more money. But that, again, is restricted for capital-related items.
Right, and the other thing to remember is that under this proposal to the council, we also include an increase in apartment owners in the county will pay a fee, so that goes in there, and business property taxes. So businesses will pay an additional fee. So someplace like National Harbor or Gaylord will pay an additional what?
I mean, Gaylord, for example, they're our largest property taxpayer. Their bill under the 15 cents will be almost $750,000 just for real property. But as county executive said, on the overall tax proposal, the idea was to spread it across. So it's not just residents, me as a homeowner paying. If you own an apartment building, you're paying the 15 cents. If you own an office building, you're paying the 15 cents. If you're a business and you operate a business and you have equipment or you have your computers, the personal property tax that increase will pick you up. So the idea is to not just target residential owners, and indirectly it picks up renters, because if I'm an apartment owner and my taxes go up, I'm passing that tax increase on to my resident, Mr. Baker. So this is a balanced approach to try to fund the $133 million.
Can I also add, I think these questions are sort of setting a tone for the question of what are these developers doing to support our school system. This is sort of a larger question. There are currently partnerships in National Harbor, particularly Hill School, which has Culinary Arts partnership with the National Harbor, where we're actually training students now to move into positions at the National Harbor. We also have partnership, obviously you may have heard, with our dual enrollment, where we offer any student in the county who has enough credits to graduate to actually take courses at the community college for no cost. You can earn up to 60 credits as a community college student and go into the University of Maryland as a junior, having paid no money. Students who go into the community college are also into a program that the National Harbor has created around culinary arts as well. So I live literally on the other side of the gate from the Gaylord. I'm a homeowner association president, so I engage with the National Harbor on different levels. But we are also trying to engage directly with the National Harbor to support Fort Foote Elementary, Oxon Hill Middle School, Oxon Hill High School, all schools that actually are going to be feeder schools for anyone who buys a home at the National Harbor. So we're saying if you're going to build homes there, shouldn't the schools and the feeder be actually very attractive as well? So we're already creating those partnerships and really encountering and really working with those developers to say, hey, you are in our community to be a good corporate citizen. Come in and support the work that we're doing. We're also working with many of our unions who are working with our electricians, our HVAC. We have high schools like Crossland, Surrattsville, Friendly are all high schools that work directly with unions to really introduce our students going out and getting that training and leaving high school certified to go and work and build many of the things that we're seeing around our county. We actually build a home every year in our county from scratch, and we sell it right in Clinton from students of Prince George's County Public Schools. So we're partnering with the private sector, but also with our unions to really make sure that we're giving our students the training they need to go off and be career ready.
Thank you. Thank you. These microphones are... So, this is interesting, and maybe Dr. Golson can help us with this one. If you could only fund 5 of the investments in the strategic plan, which ones would you choose, or do they all have to go together?
I can answer that.
Yeah, you would.
I mean, the school system is literally like the body. Everything touches everything. The county executive said, we'll stay here as long as the principal can stay here. I would amend that and say, I would stay here as long as the building supervisor could stay here. Because he is someone who you may not see, but the reason why this building looks the way it does is because someone set this room up for us. Should we cut his job? Should we cut his pay? Or maybe we should cut, maybe libraries aren't as important, so maybe parents read to their kids at night, so we don't need libraries. Or maybe we should, give teachers more money, but don't give them professional development. Or put more money in here, and I mean, it's all interconnected. The role of a school leader, and what we do in our system is really give the power to the school leader to understand and put the power in his or her hands saying, what does your school need? We lock certain positions that say, around nursing and guidance counselors saying, every school should have a certain standard. But we also give a lot of power to our to our school leaders to say, I need an extra reading specialist. I may not need an extra ELL specialist. Or maybe I need 2 ELL specialists and then maybe 1 reading specialist. So personally, someone who's worked in the school system and understanding the interconnectedness of it all, for me, there's no one area that we could cut without actually hurting another area.
Let me, Monica, I'm going to save you from answering this question. Because the person who wrote that question, which is a very good question. In fact, that's the question our school system has been getting for the last 30 years. To make a choice on which programs that they would fund, because they're a limited resource. It's a question, as I point to Director Mary Lou, she had to do when we said, cut your budget by 5% and tell us which programs you can live without over at the jail. The reason we asked for 15 cents in this budget to the school system was to say, we don't want you to make a choice of the 500 square miles that this county's in and every school within it. We want to bring the system up. What will it take? Because every year that I've been county executive, we have increased the budget for the school system so that they can make that choice with limited resources. This year we have to decide, do we want a top-notch school system or we don't? That really is what this debate is about. Either we are going to invest the way that our counterparts invest or we're not. So they've been answering that question and they've been doing with less. In fact, the principal just told you how she's doing with less here. What we want to see is if we invest 15 cents, 1-5. That's important because some people, like Dr. Anderson, are going to pay more. Some people, like me, are going to pay less. Depends on where we live and the assessment of our houses. But it is what's going to improve the school system and move us up. So that's really what this budget is about.
Thank you. There was a statement from you in the Gazette where you said, "We all want our home values to go up, and that can only happen if we have good schools." I'm paraphrasing. If people can't afford this tax increase, how can our home values increase when the percentage of foreclosures are already high in Prince George's County?
I knew that question was coming. And the answer is what I said. The reason, and I'll have Tom, add to this, the reason we have not rebounded the way that our neighbors around surrounding jurisdictions have is because of one glaring issue, and that's our education system. It's not crime. If you go to Virginia with the same house you have in Prince George's County and you look at the crime statistics and you look how we brought down crime, the only exception to the rule is D.C. because it's a city. Cities get away with it. Counties do not. In order for us to rebound from foreclosure at a faster rate, it is easier if I could point to people and say, guess what? I've got a house over here for sale, and your child can go to Roosevelt High School, considered one of the top high schools in the nation. In Montgomery County, they can point to, how many is it, 23? They can point to a number of high schools that are in the top in the nation. So that's why the values of the home go up around education. Education is also your calling card. It's your reputation. When people say Howard County is a great place to invest in, when businesses say that, it's not because of a location. We got a better location. It's not because of office space. We have more office space. It's not because of affordability. Ours are cheaper. It's because the calling card is this public education system. The same way with Montgomery County, the same way with Fairfax County, the same way with Arlington County, which is why Arlington County came from a sleepy place to one of the top counties because it has a good public school system. If we want the values of our homes to go up, our biggest investment, it is the biggest investment I'm going to make. The biggest investment is the only thing I'm going to leave my children, the house. I want it to be worth something when I leave it. The only way to make sure that investment pays off is to have a great school system so people want to move here and want to buy it. For the people who are struggling, that is why we looked at capping those who are making $60,000, making sure that we cap it there. We've also heard people around this county who said, that's too low. Maybe you should look at raising it. That's a legitimate point. And so what we've done is to go back, and we'll work with the council on that, is to look at raising that amount. We're also looking at our seniors to make sure we don't disproportionately hurt seniors who are on a fixed income. So we're going to look at that. The other thing we're going to do, and we found out through these forums, is a number of our folks in Prince George's County who would qualify for the homestead, the homeowner's tax credit, aren't applying. If those folks, and we're going to do this, make sure that we carry the form so people can apply, they will be excluded from the tax increase. So we are looking at everything, but the only way we're going to make it to the top is by investing in education.
And just to elaborate a little what he was, county executive was just saying, there's an existing program in Maryland that caps the amount of taxes you pay in general. If you make if your household income is $60,000 or less, you have net assets excluding your house of less than $200,000. Your taxes are capped. So we have about 4,500 households right now to get the credit. So those 4,500 households are not going to be impacted at all by this. Their taxes are already capped. They're getting a credit. What we've heard through a number of these now is to bump that up higher. So what we're going to propose to the council is to bump that up to 70 and it'll be incremental so that there's a break given for households, and that 60 to 70 break that's staggered based on, the higher your income is, closer you are to 70, you're going to pay something, but it's going to be, you're going to be given a credit for some of the taxes you're going to pay. But again, for 4,500 people, households, this doesn't impact them at all. And the one thing we know is our number of households should be higher. Anne Arundel, or Baltimore County, who's similar to us in household income, has almost 9,000 households apply and get the credit. We're about 4,500. So there's at least 2,000 to 3,000 households that are eligible for this program who right now aren't getting it. And if they apply, guess what? They're actually going to get a tax break because their taxes are going to be capped. So we're trying to encourage, there's forms out here now. If you think you, your mother, grandmother, ever who is eligible, staff has the forms to fill it in. There's already you can send it in, and hopefully we can increase that number. But it's something folks should seriously look at and take advantage of, because we know for a fact enough people aren't.
Thank you. I understand that the 15% increase will be fully dedicated to operations. What's being done to address the school system's capital improvement needs?
It's a good question. Yes, all of this money, the 15 cents, will be dedicated toward operations, which also includes things like maintenance and repair. So they will help with some of the capital issues, but it won't help build schools. For that, we're going to, continue to lean on our friends at the state to help us with money for capital for school construction dollars, and we're prepared, and we sent this offer to Annapolis to put a 2-to-1 match on any of the money that we get from the state to help us build faster. Prince George's County, Montgomery County, and Baltimore County are jurisdictions that are facing an increase in student population. But we also, in our case, we have a lot of schools like this that need a lot of renovation. And so we're looking for ways to actually do that. But the critical need we have for the school system is in the operation side, retaining our great teachers, retaining great principals, investing in programs like all-day pre-K, investing in the breakfast programs so our kids are ready and able to learn, and digital learn. So we're putting that money where it has direct impact in the classroom, and we're going to look for ways that help with the repairs and renovation.
And there is a small piece of the $133 million that will help deal with the ongoing maintenance issues. We're going to add another shift of folks, because sometimes when you got 1,000 kids in here, you can't come and work on some of the systems. So there's going to be an additional shift added that will help deal with the system side, and so that there's proper heat in the winter and proper cool when it gets hot. So there is a small piece in the $133 million.
And let me say this. I know Councilmember Taveras has brought this up on numerous occasions about the capital portion of it. And part of what we're doing is looking, and I think having conversation with Dr. Maxwell to see how much of that we can actually look at. So that has been a big thing that she's brought up to us.
Why should we pay teachers more when the economy is still struggling and our students are not performing well?
That's an interesting question. I would say a couple of things. I think in many cases our teachers are already underpaid as it pertains to their impact on our community, on society, as it relates to their degree requirement. In order to be a teacher in anywhere in America, you have to have a college degree. In many cases, you have to have a master's degree and master's degree plus. Those folks take that same degree to another industry, and they would make almost twice as much. So if we look at sort of the demand and sort of them as a part of society, then we're underpaying them tremendously. If you look at the amount of expertise they have to bring to a classroom in order to serve 90 children individually, also is a high quality that they bring to our system. I think also we talk about sort of how Prince George's County is a mass exporter of teachers to other districts. People will say, Prince George's County and other districts sort of start off at the same rate. It's a first-year teacher in Prince George's County versus a first-year teacher in a neighboring area actually probably get the same amount. But other areas actually accelerate to the pay scale much faster than we do. So after about 7 to 10 years, other districts are making about $15,000 more to teach in another district than it is in Prince George's County. Oftentimes, when we have students who have more special needs than even in the school they were teaching at, so we're going to pay them less and then put them in front of students who are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. And so as we're trying to really professionalize the teaching profession, this is not a Prince George's County, this is a national issue. How do we bring back the teaching profession to say teachers should be respected like doctors and lawyers? That to go into teaching, you should have the same level of rigor in your undergraduate degree, the same level of training in the classroom, because what we're putting in front of you are little patients that you can't do it over. If you mess up, you can't get a do-over with a kid's third grade year. And when we're saying we want to invest in our children, understand that we all had a teacher who we all remember right now as the one who touched our lives. And the question is, how much was that worth to us? How much was it worth to you for that teacher to touch your life? I know I have mine, and I wouldn't be standing here without her. But we're looking at cutting costs for teachers. We're saying pay them what they deserve, not a penny more. Pay them what they deserve. And right now we're not paying them what they deserve, especially with what we're asking them to do.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that as well. We really want to retain our teachers in the school system, and that's most important. So I'm a product of Prince George's County Public Schools, and I like to visit the schools that I graduated from, and it's great to see those teachers that are still in that school. But for that teacher to remain there over 30 years has lost approximately $200,000 in income to remain because they're committed to Prince George's County and the students that are there. So their satisfaction is seeing the success in their students, but we want to be able to provide them the finances so that they also reap that reward in their current job. So it's important that we invest back into the people who've invested in our children. We lose 1,000 teachers a year. We have trained them and done a great job in professional development. Other jurisdictions admit it. They'll say, they even come in our buildings and recruit. They got the nerve to step in the building and recruit. I just think that's just bold. So we ought to be able to, our teachers ought to be at a position where they're not in a position where they're challenged and they have to make that choice. They can look the recruiter in the face and say, I choose to be here because I want to give back to the children in the community of which I live and I'm paid for it.
So, Mr. Baker, why not just cut taxes?
Who asked that question? Somebody from Anne Arundel County. You know, that was yours, Thomas? That was his. Actually, that's, no jokes aside, that is actually what was recommended on the 5th floor. Why not cut? Cut the education, just barely fund education. We're cutting everywhere else. The budget we presented to the council is a cut. It's firing people. That's the biggest cut you can get. It's taking actual people we pay for health insurance. We're taking them off of our tax rolls because we can't afford it because income from property taxes and residential taxes is not coming up at the way that it can for us to maintain it. So we're cutting. Furloughs. We're cutting people's pay. We don't let directors hire more people. We're cutting. Classes of police officers. We're cutting. Classes of firefighters. We're cutting. Classes of correction, we're cutting. State's attorney, we're cutting. That's your tax cut, we're cutting. Trash pickup in those areas that don't live in cities, we're cutting. The number of potholes we can fill at a time, we're cutting. We are slicing everything out of this budget, except for one thing. We're not cutting your kids' education. It is the only place. So the budget that I presented to the council, and they'll tell you this, if you ask all of them, it is draconian. They're going to take away my liberal card. There ain't no increase in there. Pay raises? No. Barry Stanton will tell you this. The FOP stood up and said, we're not getting a pay raise, but teachers could possibly get a pay raise. I said, you're right. Actually, I used another word. I said, you're right. We're funding our priorities. With limited resources, we're funding our priorities. Everything else is cut. It's bare bones. There's no increases, no pay raises, no more people. It's gone. until we see the revenues come in, which won't come in until I leave office, so everybody will hate me for the next however years I got. Those revenues will not come in. But we're not going to increase it on that side. That's why we've asked Park and Planning not to raise taxes. That's why we asked WSSE not to raise taxes. That's why we're living within our means, so our rainy fund that we have is going to stay there. We're not spending it on ongoing costs. So yes, we are cutting. But with all of the development projects that are coming in, with all of those things that are going to happen here, just think about it. We got about $6 to $7 billion worth of development that's going to happen within the next 4 years in this county. That's going to bring in that commercial tax base that I've talked about for the last 5 years that we need to grow. It's actually starting to grow. When those resources come in, you can do like the guy in Anne Arundel County who says, oh, I'm giving him a tax cut. Yes, because his commercial tax base went up. He got money for casinos. But what he's not defunding is the 66% he puts into his education system. So until we have revenues coming in, we're cutting. Next year's budget, we'll cut.
Okay, can I add something else? When people move to Prince George's County, often many of them do pay an education tax. It's called private school, right? People say, Curtis, you and your wife, college educated, work very hard. Moving to Prince George's County is a great place to live, but don't put your kids in the public schools. Remember I told you they called them, right? The houses are so cheap, you could pay for private school and still make out. Education tax. You're factoring that into your expenses, saying, I'm willing to pay for a private school. We're saying we want to make a system where you don't have to do that, where you could save the money you're putting in private school. To me, that's a tax cut. We're also going to put money into those of you who have high school students, those of you who have students coming through high school, and going to give you free college tuition at the Community College of Prince George's County. Money that you would have paid to the University of Maryland or Morgan State or Bowie State or any other school. To me, that's a cut. To me. So if you think about the number of parents who come into our system, who put their kids in a private school, expecting the kids in private, and then many of them have never even been into a public school in Prince George's County. They actually opt out just off a rumor. I've heard in a barber shop that the school it sucks really bad. I beg your pardon. And then go off and spend $12,000 a year on private school off a rumor in a barber shop? You wouldn't buy a car or anything else off a rumor. But you're paying an education tax in private school. And we're saying, come back into our system. We're increasing money in all the programs that many parents who put their kids in private school support. And we're saying, keep that money in your pocket. That's a cut.
Just one last thing. I did ask Tom when we were doing the budget to give me an alternative budget because I knew I was going to get that question about the tax cut. I said, okay, if I don't raise the property taxes or the others, but I want to fund what the school system needs to move up, what do I have to cut on the other side that I'm not already cutting? I actually had him draw this up because I would actually submit this. What would we have to do, Thomas, in order to meet?
Since the majority of what we do is people, we would have to cut about almost 1,300 active employees. So put it in perspective. We have now 9 councilmatic districts. So let's pick 2 districts that we're not going to have any police officers, firefighters, the sheriff. That's essentially what it is. It's 20%. We'd have to cut our workforce by 20%. So the easiest way to think of it is 2 councilmatic districts that we won't have any staff in. And that's what we had to deal with because the majority of what we do, almost the majority of anything, think of your business. The majority of what you do as a business is people. We're no different. We're no different. And that's the option we talked about, and obviously that has significant impact, and he wasn't willing to do that.
So this is somewhat related to the issue of teacher salaries. What steps are being taken to incentivize educators staying in the county, such as home ownership or higher salaries like they do in Montgomery County?
I'll ask you to talk about maybe home ownership. I know there's in the past had been a sort of teacher next door program. I don't know if we have that now. But in my relationship with teachers, and I've, as a board member, tried to organize particularly male educators in our system. About half of our students are male. Only about 20% of our teachers are male. So I go around the county organizing men to say, let's go out and recruit middle school and high school students who want to become a school teacher. You know, what's better? What's a better way to get back to community and become a school teacher? So when I sit with them, they often talk about why they stayed, why they came, why they stayed, and if they leave, why they would leave. And the top two reasons, one is actually support, saying in my building, I want support from my school leader. I want support to be able to be flexible in the classroom and really meet the needs of my students. And number two, it's actually pay. And it's sort of 1 and 2, depending on who you ask. Pay is 1, depending on where they are on the scale. So they're saying, if you support me the way I'm valued in society, my degree is valued and what I work for, but also you support me in the classroom with professional development, with teachers who have professional development, with a learning community, which means put me in contact with another male teacher who teaches the same subject around the corner. So he and I could sit down and say, guess what I heard yesterday? Guess what happened to me yesterday? Did it happen to you too? And how did you deal with it? So I'm on actually the teacher leadership steering committee, and I was actually at a meeting early this morning, and we're talking about how we're creating all the leadership initiatives we have in our county. We have a lot of them. And how we're making sure that we don't have redundancy, that we're making sure that we have specific teachers who want to teach a certain subject, who want to move up to the pipeline, have opportunities to connect with other educators, and how we're really meeting the needs of our educators to really empower them to be the sort of the pivot off of the central part of change. Because that's what happens, that student and that teacher relationship, if that's not strong, then a lot of what we're doing is not going to be strong. So the longevity in the classroom and in the profession is directly related to teacher pay and to teacher support. And we're doing that in a myriad of ways by increasing pay to them, as we mentioned earlier, retention pay, but also a lot of professional development, a lot of the support for parents. So I'll have to say, I'm actually the chair of the Parent, Family, and Community Engagement Committee in our school board. So oftentimes the men will say, you know, I work very hard, but when I call home, parents don't answer the phone, or they won't work with me in order to really serve the needs of their child. So we're investing a lot in community outreach advisors. And we're saying, let's put a community outreach advisor in 60 more schools and say, let's have someone working directly with parents, because when you have more parent engagement, the teachers actually feel it first. The teachers who feel it first. We're also going to hire an ombudsman to ensure that we have advocates for parents to our system. We're a very large system. And having someone to advocate on behalf of parents to our system is incredibly important as well. So we're saying, how do we increase all the supports around a teacher to make sure that they want to stay, and they want to stay in our system for longer, because that directly supports our students and student achievement.
What is in the proposal that indicates funds will not be used for something different in the future or after your term? What is in the proposal that will keep taxes from increasing in upcoming years?
Well, there are a couple. There's nothing in the proposal to keep taxes from increasing in future years. But in order to do that, you would have to submit legislation like I've done to the council. I doubt that that's going to happen under the next administration for here. The other thing is, how do we keep this from going to something else other than, education? One is maintenance of effort. The other is it can only be used for education. So we're 100% guaranteed that the increases will go to education. One of the things we've said to Dr. Maxwell and to the school board, and they've agreed, so not only you have the eyes and ears of the school board, you have the eyes and ears of the county council, you have the eyes and ears of the legislature, looking at the categories that we're funding and monitoring it. So that's how we're going to make sure the money is used for education. Maintenance of effort means we have to keep it at this level unless it's replaced by some other funds that come in, like gaming money or something like that.
Just to add one other thing, that under the state law that allows us to raise the tax rate, we have to report annually to the governor, the Maryland General Assembly, basically on what the rate increase was, how much it was generated, and where it went. So annually, that we have to file that report as long as the rate's above the tax cap rate. And the second thing is, you'll see on your tax bill a separate line item that will be solely for that. So you're going to know specifically how much you as a taxpayer are paying for this education tax, and it's going solely for education.
Thank you. The budget increase for education of $130 million, does this also include $132 million restored to funding of K-12 education?
I'm not sure what they're referring to. 132 million. I'm looking at.
Was 132 deducted in past years from other budgets?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go on to another
I mean,
question.
during the recession, I mean, the school system did cut annually, probably $100 million a year. Each and every year they had to cut when the state aid wasn't coming in as much as what it was, when the county wasn't giving as much as what it was. So it was during the recession. So there was that, but that went on.
Can I add one thing? As we were looking at this budget, and my colleague, Dr. Beverly Anderson, who's chair of our budget committee, can attest to this. We looked at this budget 6-8 months ago and said, what is it going to take to move our system forward, and what it's going to look like if we get maintenance of effort? And in November, this election happened, right? And then the State House changed. And we realized, actually, this first chart, that our state funding for our school system is the highest of any district in the state. And we rely heavily on who's in the State House, and to make decisions based on what we think the person in the State House is going to send back to Prince George's County. Other districts don't have to rely as much on the state as much as we do. And so we looked at it and said, well, even if we get maintenance of effort from the county, we're still looking at a $60 million cut from GCI and other areas. And we, as mentioned earlier, that money was coming back, but we had to fight for that money. The question is, if the current governor is reelected in 4 years, what happens then? And the idea that we want to become less reliant on the state for funding and have more independence that other districts have, because otherwise you will have to keep looking and saying, well, who's going to be in the State House? Are they going to cut funding for Prince George's County because we're disproportionately affected by who's in the State House because we rely so much on who's in the State House?
We have an explanation for where the question came from, and it was a letter, I believe, from a delegate, state delegate. But we can take it up at the close. Next question. Why are Prince George's County taxes so high with limited benefits for seniors who are homeowners who have been in their homes for over 30 years with incomes over $60,000?
I mean, let me start with the first one. On the property tax side, it goes to a couple things. Because our values, residential values, commercial values aren't as high as our neighbors, our rates have to be higher. But secondly, we have greater service demands than our neighbors do for a variety of reasons. Mr. Valentine mentioned the schools, for example. Our free and reduced meal kits are double what Montgomery's is. And so those cost more to educate. So when you have the two dynamics, that's why our rates, are higher than most, because Montgomery County, a $300,000 house here is $600,000 in Montgomery County. So their rates are lower because their service needs are lower than ours. And that's why we've been focusing so much, and the county executive mentioned, on economic development and growing the commercial tax base. And we've been successful because that will help level the playing field. And as we continue to be successful, hopefully the rates will lower. And because two things, values are up, but also hopefully service levels will stop increasing as much as they have, because we're becoming a wealthier county and we don't have as many issues.
Two things that we need. One is the values to go up, which is why we need a great school system that help with that. The other is to expand our commercial tax base so we're not relying on residential property taxes like we are now. I think we get about 70% from residential property taxes, about 26 from business or commercial. If you look at Montgomery County, it's almost a reverse. If you look at Fairfax County, it's almost a reverse. So they've got more of a balanced approach with commercial and residential. But they also invested in schools along the line at a much greater rate than we did, which allowed their values to go up so they can invest, which also helped them attract businesses. I'll close with this. If we had a school system in the top 10, I guarantee you we would not be fighting for where the FBI is going. It will come here. Everything GSA says they want for a $2 billion project to come is in Prince George's County, whether it's the metro, whether it's the workforce, all of those things. The one thing we don't have that Fairfax County can say they do is, since this is a combined FBI, that means they're bringing people from around to one headquarters, is they lead with, we've got a great school system. They can't say they're safer, because we are safe, but they can lead with that, and that's one of the things that hurts us. If we had one of the top 10 schools, we would be right there with it, and that's what businesses look at when they're investing.
Thank you. The strategic plan addresses elementary programs predominantly. However, the issues or the major issues confronting Prince George's County Public Schools lie in the middle schools and high schools, where they can't compete with surrounding counties. Can you explain in more detail the plan for international baccalaureate programs and magnet programs where most students leave the county? Dr. Golson?
I'll start and I'll add. We are increasing funding for International Baccalaureate and AP. Again, that's free money. If you pass that test, you go off to college, you get college credit for that. We're actually moving IB, International Baccalaureate, actually into our middle schools as well to create a pipeline so the students are actually enrolling in IB a little earlier. We're also actually spending money on science and technology much earlier. You know, we have 3 hubs, Flowers High School, Oxon High School, and Roosevelt. We're actually making 2 of our middle schools science and technology middle schools. So the students actually test into those programs much earlier, and you're getting a lot of that STEM much earlier. I think, again, we increased Montessori and French immersion last year. My 2 children are actually Magna Montessori students. We'll continue to do that. What I'll also say finally, and let Dr. Goldsmith actually take over, a lot of what you're hearing in middle school, again, I'm a middle school educator in high school, are starting in the elementary levels. That's where it starts. It starts with, you know, with reading, with math, the foundational. Often in elementary school, you have a lot more parental engagement as well. Many of you all know, you know, go to a PTA meeting for an elementary school and then go to a PTA meeting for a middle and high, it's like night and day. And so the time you need the parents the most, that's when they're actually retreating. So all the investments we're putting in is through the system. We have middle school, we have high school, with 9th grade academies, all the things I mentioned, all the things we mentioned about the dual enrollment at the community college, all those things, but we're also making sure that we have the foundational, because it's really hard to make the changes later if you can really invest in our children earlier. But I'll just let you add anything I missed.
Sure. We are actually adding additional parent advocates at the middle school level because we had a teacher group that spoke about parent input at the elementary level, but it begins to wean starting in middle school up to high school. So we're adding those advocates at middle school, and then over time begin to add parent advocates through high school. We're adding $1.6 million to expand our college and career readiness programs. That is for our technical careers, as well as providing support into our college prep classes. We're adding $1.4 million to help and assist with dual enrollment. So students in their sophomore, junior, and senior year will take an acupuncture exam, which is done at the school. You don't have to go to the community college. Students receive a score, and that allows them to then take courses at the college level, which the school system will pay for the course as well as the textbooks. All you have to do is get your child there. We also are paying at the secondary level. The Digital Literacy Initiative is for grades 3, 5, and 8. So it doesn't help for us to invest in just one area for digital literacy, because our students, as they get older, need to continue to use of technology as they move forward. I know my children are a whole lot more savvy about the use of technology and take most of their assessments and even school assignments on the use of technology. So we want to provide that support in the schools. And then we also have placed $39 million in student-based budgeting, which will be schoolhouse supports. So those are, in each school it would vary. So in some high schools, they may add additional positions that would help to reduce their class size at a mathematics or English level, because based on their student academic results, they realize that their students need additional support in those content areas. Whereas another school may decide to add additional supports in there ESOL courses because they want to reduce the number of students in that class, in those classes, or to provide additional support that they didn't normally get.
Dr. Golston, don't sit down so fast. This question may be for you too. Can you speak a bit about the role of testing in the budget proposal? How much money is going to be spent on assessments? How much of this increase will go towards SRI, MRI, FAST, PARCC, other tests like that?
Excellent question. The money that we are proposing is not going into assessment. It's going into supports so that our teachers have the resources to teach the skills necessary so that students are successful on those standardized assessments. We also have a committee that's looking at what are the required assessments that our students have to take and which ones are not. We do realize that our students are taking a lot of assessments right now. My child, one of them. And so we have a task force that's made up of teachers to look at what do we really need to do in terms of reducing the number of assessments, still being able to monitor our students' progress and providing them the differentiated instruction so that they're able to increase their scores on those standardized tests, but stop so much testing that exists in the classroom. But the funds are not going directly to testing, it's going to the resources to support them in those assessments.
Thank you. How is the increased funding addressing the demographic shift in the county in terms of population growth and its effect on the need for new middle and high schools?
Well, I'll say, I mean, many of you may know that the fastest growing population in our school system are English language learners. About 25% of our school system are Latino, many of them who speak English as a first language, but many who speak as a second language. So ensuring that we're actually putting concentrated support into schools where we have a high ELL population is incredibly important, particularly around the community outreach advisors that we mentioned earlier. The majority of our community outreach advisors are going to schools where you do have a higher population of parents who are from that community as well. So we are definitely dedicating monies to where it needs to go the most. Our community outreach advisors, I think they're more than just parent advocates, the ones that we do support and that we're training up. They're actually building partnerships with businesses in their community, making sure that we're creating partnerships with other faith-based organizations in their region to really bring those folks into the school to make sure that we're really leveraging the resources, but also really being supports for those parents at the IE, you know, how you're looking at sort of the process of enrolling in the school, getting information, getting data so that they can enroll in the school, all the different things that many of us take for granted that these community outreach advisors are really supporting. So there's additional money in there for English language learners, but also more importantly, a concentrated effort to increase parental engagement in those communities as well.
The other thing that was important, just to add to that, is looking at the demographics of the school system and where it's changing in the county. Our Latino population is not just in the Langley part, northern part of the county. It is actually all the way throughout. So English, people who speak English as a second language is throughout Prince George's County. It's a fast-growing population. We also want, that's why it was important in the budget to make sure that we had the resources to affect every 500 square miles of this county of ours. So from Laurel all the way down to Eagle Harbor, the education of the county, that we had a budget that will make sure we can rise all of our school system and take into consideration that, you know, the residents of Prince George's County are doing what we want them to do, and we want them to do more of that. That is, buy your first house here, and then buy your second house here. Your first house may be at University Park, your second house could be, you know, in Clinton somewhere. But we want the quality education to be throughout the county, and so that we have the resources to deal with, you know, the kids that come in. Now, what they've done in the budget, and what Dr. Maxwell and his team have done, is looked at the school system. That's why the school-based budgeting is important, because it will tell you the snapshot, like we have up here for this school. So it could tell you, you know, what the demographics, what the free and reduced lunch are, and where the issues are, so the money is spent to make sure Nicholas Orem is the best middle school in the state. So but it's very important that this budget actually looks at how we provide a quality education throughout all of Prince George's County.
What are you doing to allow outside development programs allowing programs to prepare children for a realistic chance in the working world?
I will let Curtis answer, but I'll say in terms of our economic development, one of the things that we're doing with any of the projects that come in, I see David Iannucci in the back, any of the projects that come into the county, we try and marry them to our school system. So MGM or a hospital that's coming here, we're working with the school system to make sure there are opportunities for our young people to not only get a job, but to get information on careers in those various fields. We'll do that throughout the county, and I know there are some other programs, in particular the school system is working.
Well, I'll say, firstly, Prince George's County has probably some of the best school choice of any district in the state. The amount of options you have, whether it be performing arts at Suitland High School, visual arts, Northwestern, again, science and technology at Oxon Hill, Flowers and Roosevelt. Then we have academies. So we have Cyber Academy, we have law. I mean, we have, and students who apply for those and get in have transportation to those schools. This is choice that most districts just don't have. So we talk about sort of aligning it with college and career, particularly or even our science and technology, for example. If you get into one of our science technology high schools I mentioned earlier, in your freshman year, or freshman or sophomore year, you're actually assigned to a private business. And you work with them for over 2.5 years, almost interning with them throughout your matriculation through high school. And then when you graduate, you have a culminating project with this private sector company, oftentimes an invention. And so we're aligning our students with internships with businesses. We're looking at what the jobs in Maryland require. And I'll just sort of speak parenthetically, and Senator Penske probably knows this already. Maryland has 120,000 unfilled jobs in our state. If you go onto the Dollar website, DLLR website, and look at sort of the gap in skills that we have in our state, we have over 20,000 cybersecurity jobs go unfilled in the central part of our state. So we have students, we're saying, why can't Prince George's County students fill those jobs to make Maryland a competitive place? Because we understand that graduating from our system and going off and not being able to get a job, we have not done our job. But if we can get our children ready to go off into community college or a four-year school and then be able to walk into those four-year schools ready to learn without taking any remedial courses, and then go off in 4 years after that, be able to take a job that's waiting for them, then we've done our job. So I think we want a backward map from where the jobs are in our state, in our county, and then make sure we're preparing our students even as early as elementary school for those jobs.
Thank you. What is the role of after-school curricular activities? For example, girls excelling in math and science, creative arts, music, environmental studies, sports, and what funding is available?
Well, before as Monica comes up, I'll just say, particularly around middle school, we restored funding for middle school sports a year or so ago because we want to make sure that we have students are having that extracurricular activity after school. But oftentimes, it's a school-by-school recommendation for what's in that school. But I'll let Monica talk particularly about how we're giving resources to schools so they can make the decision based on what the population in that school wants as it relates to after-school programs.
We also are looking at providing school supports where they can provide, through their student-based budgeting, after-school programs that are specific to the academic supports that their students need. So currently, if you went on our PGCPS website and pulled up our summer programs, you would see that we offer summer programs from elementary, middle for credit recovery, as well as high school, and also as well as extended school year options for our special education students. And those are limited, but with the opportunity to have access to additional funds, we're able to expand those options for our summer school programming and be able to offer a plethora of opportunities directly in those schools in your neighborhood so you don't have to take transportation to other school sites. And then those students have teachers who they're familiar with from their regular day program to assist in that evening program. So we've built in an opportunity for schools to have those after-school programs as well as summer programs in this budget.
How many park schools do we have in our system?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, the number of schools that we have that are directly connected to a park and recreation center as well. Vansville Elementary is one. And oftentimes we are leveraging the resources that are being put into park and recreation in our elementary and our middle schools as well, because they are directly connected, literally brick and mortar connected to schools, that we allow that after school program to be coordinated.
It is important to create healthy-minded youth. It's necessary to increase the social workers and school counselors in the school system. What is the financial plan in place for this or within this new budget?
That actually is also currently rolled into the 39 million that I spoke of about student-based budgeting. So some schools currently have behavioral health advocates in their building now, but there are others who would like to add. So with the funding that each school would get, so for example, Nicholas Orem may be one of those schools that decides they would love to have that social worker. We'd be able to provide them resources for them to choose from, and they'd use that student-based budgeting to begin to add those additional health resources. We found in the schools that we've been able to begin the process of adding them, it's made a world of difference. Those behavioral advocates also help to connect parents to social services that exist within the county government, so that we're able to help bridge that gap that parents typically aren't able to access, and they're able to come for what we call one-stop shop, and they're able to bring their child to school, they'll be able to share their issues and concerns that they're having in terms of needs for social services. We're able to direct them to that resource while they're in that school. They can get that help, and then they can also receive the services that the county offers. And so through student-based budgeting, that will allow more schools to have the opportunity to do that.
And we've also been able to do that in a smaller level with our Transforming Neighborhoods initiative. So schools within those areas, we've been working with our health department, social services, in order to provide those. This budget will allow us to expand that beyond just those 6 T&I areas.
Yes. We've built 2 elementary schools within the last 5 years in West Hyattsville. This money could have been used to increase teacher salaries.
So I'll answer first. The money that goes for building schools is actually totally different than the funding that we're requesting here. So that would be our capital funding, and that's on a different cycle than the general fund money that we're asking for the county government. Though we do get a percentage when we make a request to the IC, Interagency for School Construction. There is a percentage of that money that we ask to support at the local government level, but the building of new facilities is through capital improvement funds, which is totally separate than the funds that we're requesting here to support school programs.
Thank you, County Executive. If I could, I want to make 2 quick comments. I've been listening to the questions and the answers. Let me mention 2 things, if I could. You know, nobody likes to pay taxes. Nobody does. You know, we'd rather keep it so we can go out to eat or buy some new clothes or take a vacation or do something for our children or put food on the table or pay for medicine or the doctor. Absolutely true. Nobody wants to pay taxes. But we also know things aren't free. We know when we went to school as children, we didn't pay for those schools. We didn't pay for those teachers. Other people did. And that comes to the idea of something called a social contract. That young couples who are 24, 26, 27, who want to have a child, who aren't using those schools, they're paying taxes for those schools. They're paying forward. There are grandparents who graduated public schools 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But they know their grandchildren are going to use those schools, and they're paying taxes. And it gets to this idea of a social contract, paying it forward for other people. And I think what you hear today is about that social contract. It's about investing in the future. It's about paying it forward for our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors' children. You know, and it brings to mind, a report came out last week from a group called ACT. They have a test where all high school students in many states take it. It's like the SAT. They did a big report. 57% of all high school seniors who are graduating take this test. And they asked them, how many of you want to go into education, maybe become a teacher. 5% said, I want to go into education. 5%. 4 years ago, it was 7%. It has been progressively going downhill. Now, the people who should be the best recruiters to encourage their children and neighborhood children to go into education are our current successful teachers. But unfortunately, they're preparing for class, they're talking to parents, they're grading papers, and they don't get to take a breath until their own children are put to bed. So many of them are not that enthusiastic of encouraging other people to become teachers. You know, for an HR department, a human resources department, when they have applications this many, they can be very selective. When you have applications this size, you can't be quite as selective. And some of these school systems, like in Montgomery County, have piles of applicants like this. Other school systems don't have as many people applying. And the idea of making an investment to get the best and the brightest to come here and to keep those successful teachers is crucial, and it will pay dividends. And it doesn't mean that teachers aren't willing to be accountable. And if you pay them more money, you can ask for more accountability. But from my experience as a teacher and working with teachers, they will respond. But getting away with saying, we're not going to pay, if you don't pay taxes, you don't have police to protect your community, you don't have teachers to teach your children. And again, no one likes it. But the question is it worth the investment? And I think what the county executive said is if we can move our schools up and improved, we're going to have more people wanting to move to our county, buy homes, maybe buy our own homes, bring their businesses here. You know, the FBI has been mentioned, but I don't think anybody mentioned 10,000 employees. Think about that, 10,000 people moving to our county to work. Some are going to want to live here. Some are going to want to go out to restaurants here, movies, or cleaners. And that will raise the property values and have more investment. And the more companies and businesses that come here, as the county executive said, we can rely less on our property taxes, which does hit home. We know that. So again, I think a lot of what's been said tonight has to be looked at the social contract. What are we willing to do to pay it forward to improve our county? So I want to thank the county executive for coming to the our area tonight, and Mr. Valentine and all the board members and what they do, and the teachers and the parents. But I just wanted to share a few things. Thank you, county executive.
Thank you, Senator Pinsky. Next question. How do you justify the large number of administrative positions in the school system occupied by the politically well-connected?
I'll say, and I've been asked this question before.
Before Curtis answers that, let me just preface this. The additional amount of money that we're putting into Dr. Maxwell's budget goes directly into classrooms and the impact on those areas we're outlined. So not the staffing at Sasser. It will go into, pay raises to retain those teachers.
I was asked this question last week, and I'll say two things. One, if you look at districts with a comparable size, the number of students, the number of schools, the sheer size of demographic, Prince George's County, as you look at our top, we are on par. Another thing I'll say is my colleagues and I, we approve of these positions. And we ask, is this a new position? Is this position going to increase the overall line item for staffing in your administration, CEO Maxwell? And he says to us every time, no, because there's either a position that was vacant or this position has been open so long, we've had cost savings because no one has filled it in years. And so you look at all those things. We are as a board, we are very critical of that. Last thing I'll say is this. I grew up in New Jersey. Places like New Jersey and Pennsylvania, you look at this number of school districts they have. In Maryland, we have 24 school districts. In Pennsylvania, 500. So Prince George's County, if we were in another state, we would be 20 districts, paying 20 superintendents 6 figures, and all of them having assistant superintendents in order to, in many cases, manage 2 or 3 high schools. But we have 26 high schools, 206 schools with a high population of students who have demands, who have really demanding backgrounds. So as we look at how we're looking at our central office, we are critical as a board, and I think my colleagues would attest to that. That's the one question we ask. But we also understand that we are a very large district, top 20 in the country. There are 15,000 school districts in America. We're a top 20 district. And that costs in order to really coordinate and make sure that the principals and the districts are all being coordinated, that funding is getting to where it is, and that we're having oversight and making sure we're holding everybody accountable. But we have 16,000 employees. That's something that I think myself and my colleagues are critical, but I think we have been answered and believe that we're at the right level right now.
Thank you. Why are the schools continuously used as the Trojan horse for spending more money? Is this request based on the influx of illegal immigrants that have been added to the system?
No. It is based on, and first of all, this is not a Trojan horse. You know why? Because every single dime has to go into the school system. It's not the lottery. It's not gaming where there's a percentage that goes in there. Every single dime, 100%, goes into our school system, so the board, Dr. Maxwell, can fund these priority areas and move our school system up. Councilmember Taveras, myself, we don't get this money. We don't get to see it, to deal with the problems that we also are going to have to deal with on the other side. So one, all of it goes to the school system. Two, no, it's not based on the unaccompanied minors. It's based on moving a school system that has been 23 or 24 for at least as long as I've been in this county. So that's 25, almost 30 years, moving it up and investing in a way that we could not have invest since I've been here. Because why? We had a tax cap that said you can't raise the rates, the property taxes, to invest in education. But in 2012, the rest of the state, which was paying into our system, the rest of the state got tired of us and a couple of other counties coming down to Annapolis and saying, we'd like to invest more of our money into our school system, but we have a tax cap, so we can't. When the recession happened, they decided enough of that. They said, those of you with a tax cap, we're allowing you to go over the tax cap just for education because we're getting ready to cut the funding you're going to get from the state on education. That's why I think the first county to use it was Talbot, a Republican county. Talbot. A Republican county was the first one to use this. But it really is people from Howard County, Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, Baltimore County said, listen, we're investing our citizens' tax dollars into our education system. You should do the same if you believe in it. That's why they allowed us to do it. So that's why we're able to invest in moving us up so that some of the things that Senator Pinsky talked about, we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. How much of an educational system's problems are due to social factors that can't be fixed by spending more on education?
The answer on that, let me just say this. What we do know, if you look at the line items that we invested in, and Curtis touched on some of it, the areas where we can make improvements and turn school systems around. We have schools in Prince George's County that are 80% free and reduced lunch, but test scores and other measurements are up because those schools are investing in programs that help each and every student that comes in there. What we want to be able to do is that across the board. So we know things like parental engagement. That's why we put about $1.1 million into community engagement, advocacy at the school level. That's just not having parents come to PTA. That's also making sure parents know that there are resources at the county level, like social workers, like family services, like health, that may have an impact on that child there. But these are the things that we're doing at the middle school level when we know that dropout rates are happening at an alarming rate. Well, middle school to high school, they start at the problem where they're going to drop out of the schools. We're putting programs at the middle school level that we're now doing in only select areas with our Transforming Neighborhoods initiative. We can do this with this additional funds throughout Prince George's County.
I agree with the question that our schools are really where the buck stops in communities. If you're not getting fed at home, you live in a home where there's no food in the refrigerator, we're going to feed you. If you live in a home where you don't have guidance, or you're not, have discipline, you don't have self-control, when you come to our schools, we have to incorporate that into our teaching. A lot of the things that societies don't have or communities are deficient in, the school system has to create and fill those gaps. At the same time, as a former teacher myself, and any teacher in the room could say, we don't use that as an excuse. We can't say, well, little Johnny didn't, comes from a community, comes from a home where his parents didn't reach him and he does not know his ABCs and he's almost 6 years old. We have to work with little Johnny anyway. So we don't make excuses in our system. We just get up in the morning and we just, do the work that we've always been doing more with less. And we've sort of accepted that. Prince George's County teachers do more with less. Go off. Good job. Thank you very much. And then judge after. And we're saying everything that's happening in the community, it stops right here. You drive around the block 20 times and say, wow, everything that you're seeing out there, the next morning comes right here, and the principal says, outside does not matter to me. When you're in here are expectations. You will do this, this, and this, and this. Are we understood? She doesn't say, well, I understand you come from this community. I'll let you do what you want to do because I know where you come from. No. We have excellence as an expectation. Expectation. And no excuses. We can't come and say, hey, we're not doing well because... No. You can't tell a parent that. A parent doesn't want to hear that. A councilman doesn't want to hear that when they call the councilman's office and says, this is happening in my school. We want answers. And teachers and their staff get up every morning and say, in spite of everything that's happening, I am going to do my best with what I have. Fund them or not, they're going to be here first day of school next year, ready to go. We're saying, why not give them what they need to do it? That's all we ask. Give them what they need to do it. They've been doing so much with less. Imagine what they could do if we gave them what they've always deserved. And in my understanding, and this is something I read, since 1978, we have yet to fully fund our school system. Yet. Ever. And I was actually born in 1978. I just told my age.
No, you just told mine.
But what would happen if we did that? We're making tremendous progress. But if we fund our school system, I think we could fly. I really do.
Thank you. So it's a little bit after 8. The county executive has promised that we're going to answer every question. We have about 12 more to go. And this is
We'll try and make the answers short.
Okay. Is the school system still bringing teachers to the county from the Philippines? If so, why? And the answer is no.
No.
No, the Department of Labor stopped that.
Now, we do have teachers from the Philippines who were here before, but there are no new teachers who have come in almost 5 years.
Can management be located closer to area schools?
Whoever asked that question will be around. 'Cause
I'm not sure of the question,
but we'll be here.
I would like to know, will there be other Science Saturdays events held at other schools throughout the county, as was held here at this school on March 28th of this year?
Principal, do you want to answer that question? I'm not.
Around the county, I don't think the principal's I'm responsible for this one.
Good question.
Do we know from the school board if there'll be other science program, or Monica? Oh, this is a science. You know what, Monica, why don't you come up here and help us out?
I'm not sure.
So we were actually just asking questions if it was a school-sponsored Science Saturday, or if it was countywide, and it was a joint partnership. And we always work to do partnerships. So, for example, there will be a partnership tomorrow for what we call Transforming Neighborhoods Initiative with Bladensburg community. It's called A Taste of Bladensburg, and it's done also with other partnerships and organizations, and that takes place tomorrow. So we try to do a variety of programs throughout the county, and that the additional funding will help to support some of those experiences as well, because we'll be able to pay teachers on the weekend and after school events so that they can attend those. Right now they're limited because we realize that our teachers provide an enormous amount of time during the workday, and we try to limit the amount of time that they spend on the weekend, but they do come out without that pay to assist us to make sure that we provide those type of enrichment activities where our students receive the accolades that they deserve for going above and beyond.
Thank you. So does this proposal include education for adults? Will there be tuition assistance?
I don't.
Tuition assistance, well, if it relates to dual enrollment, it is only for Prince George's County Public School students if he's referring to tuition enrollment for the community college.
No, it would not.
It would not.
The target of the $183 additional dollars would not go to our adult education. It would go directly into the impact of the K through 12.
Please compare the tax rates paid by residents of Prince George's County versus others in the state of Maryland.
I think
Unless
we
you wanna
kind of
compare.
touched, we touched upon this before a little bit, but yes, our rates are higher than other people, but as I explained before, the values in other places are higher for a variety of reasons, and that's why our rates are higher than our neighbors.
Right, so if our values of our homes were higher, which our schools would have the impact on that, then we could lower the rate that you would have to pay. Get the values up, we get more money.
This is kind of technical. Are 401k and IRAs counted in assets, Thomas?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. And the reason it's a good question is that was brought up before, and it's something that we said we would look at it because I think in terms of the seniors and
Right, and if anybody who asks the question, pick up the form, it walks through what is included in income. It's 20 to 25 different things that's included in income, and then also net assets.
School systems are successful. We talked about this briefly, but school systems are successful because of parental involvement. What's being done to increase and encourage parental involvement?
real quick, that's the $1.1 million that we're putting into our parental involvement or community, what's it called? Real quick. What is it? Yes.
Community outreach advisor.
Community outreach advisor. But that's the $1.1 million we're putting into that.
So community outreach advisors, we have the ombudsman I mentioned earlier. We also have created some we have a parent advisory council that's advised the school board on different mechanisms to really improve parental involvement. We're having our website. We have other opportunities for parents to get engaged through other portals. We have an app on our phone. We really want to make it convenient for parents to get involved in our school system as much as possible.
Is the teacher loss in different areas of the county more noticeable than others? If so, could this migration be
Yes.
attributed
Ken?
to, I'm sorry,
I-
be attributed to factors other than money?
Ken, you want to talk about it?
What we're seeing is that inner beltway schools tend to lose teachers at a greater rate than the rural tier. And it's because of overcrowding in the classrooms mainly. We don't have hard data, exit data on professionals, but on emails that I receive, it's stress from overcrowded classrooms is
Right.
the primary reason.
So you, go ahead. Go ahead, Denny.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I mean, because I think that I've heard something about the construction of schools and whatnot. I just want us to realize, I haven't made a decision yet where I stand with this, but I just want us to realize that our district would be the highest beneficiary. We have, of this proposal, at the end of the, and we would probably pay the least into it. That's just a fact. That's just one thing I just want to put out there. Our schools we are the only district that has the highest population of students in the classroom. All of our schools are overutilized, over 100 to 150%. And so when people were asking about construction, this is why I have 9 trailers out a corner around in 2 elementary schools that are side by side around the corner from where I live in Adelphi. And we're around the corner of a brand new school that opened up in September, and it's already at capacity. It opened at capacity. So let me just tell you that we are just busting at the seams with the number of students that are inside the classroom. So I'll just leave that there.
Thank you, Denny. Betty?
Thank you. What issues do teachers face, and how effective is the lesson if 50% of the students are English speaking and the other 50% have English as a second language?
Well, I'll say that there's difficulty when all your students are speaking the same language, depending on classroom sizes, depending on trying to implement, as we're doing, a new curriculum. If you have parents who are not engaged, if you have turnover in leadership every year, these are things that will affect you whether you have an English language learner in front of you or not. What we're saying is we want to give teachers the training and the preparation to serve any child that comes in front of them. Because again, our teachers will not make excuses. They're going to serve the students in front of them. But the issues that are affecting teaching, many cases, are an issue of funding and respect for the profession, which is what we're trying to give back with this budget.
Right. So what the budget does on that, to that question, is actually provide the support in the classroom so we can deal with the challenges that we have in each and every one of our classrooms. Some of those challenges are English as a second language. Some of those challenges have to do with our talented and gifted kids and giving them more. So it's not just, free and reduced lunch or kids who like me, had a problem with reading. It's also our talented and gifted students who move up in these areas, and we need to have the focus to bring them up. That's why it's important to put the resources in there. Somebody asked, why do teachers leave, and why are they leaving from some of our challenging schools? One is not because they don't care about our kids. They love our kids. But when you're overcrowded in the classroom, you don't have the support you need there in terms of an assistant principal or a mentor teacher, and then you do a great job and somebody offers you $15,000 to go to Howard County, where your class size is going to be smaller, where you're going to have great parental support, you're going to have great school support, then it's hard to make a choice and not, do that. So what we want to do is put ourselves at a competitive edge and provide the best education for our kids. Betty, I know we got 2 more questions.
2 more questions.
2 more.
If we are the second largest school system in Maryland, how much funds does the county receive from the state each school year? If a smaller school system receives more funds than Prince George's County, then which is a larger school system, why? And then there's a statement: if property values and assessments are lower than others, why don't we start enforcing the county's property codes? This will help increase property values and revenue for the county.
2 separate questions. One, the code question, informing having code enforcers. That's one of the things we struggle with the budget. That's on the general operation side. That's my budget, not the school's budget. On my side, remember I started off and said we're cutting? So yes, DPI, our Department of Permits, Inspection, and Enforcement, would love to hire more code enforcers and inspectors. Guess what? We have no revenues, so they won't be hiring any more of those folks. On the school side, I think the question was what? What about? Yes.
I mean, we get $1 billion a year in state aid for the school system. That's more than anybody. But the way the formula works is based on wealth and enrollment. So, but to add something the county executive said on dealing with the property, we've eliminated over 1,000 properties that were blighted properties, in the first 4 years, which that was basically more than a decade worth of other administration. So we are taking it seriously, dealing with code enforcement and removing blight when it doesn't comply with code.
Thank you.
Betty?
There's a grandmother asked a question about getting her grandchildren into the Thomas Pullen School. I'd ask you to talk to Dr. Golson after we adjourn.
Great school.
And then there is another question. This is a quick one. How are these sessions being advertised so that more community members can participate? Barry Hudson, our Director of Communications, will give us a brief answer.
Brief.
Very brief. Well, first of all, we have 6 of these, so this is the third of the 6. So there are 3 more that you can do. But the way that it's been advertised is on our website. We push out emails through a number of different organizations, the school system, through our email list, through a number of the county agencies, the community partners, and things of that nature. Whoever offered that question up, please see me after the meeting because we'd love to be able to have more ways to channel the information.
That's our last question. I'm going to do this because I know the maintenance crew is going to come in here and say, I've got to get ready for tomorrow. So until they actually physically kick us out of here, I will be standing here. The only other person where's Thomas? Thomas is glad to stand here with me, I think. And if you have additional questions, you want to come up here and you want to ask us, I'll stay until they, sweep us out. Or Sandman
Thank you,
Sims
Mr.
come
Baker.
get
I
us.
have a couple of official things I must say. This concludes our conversation for this evening, and we thank
I think
you
they
so
got
much
that.
for coming. And I would like to let you know that you can find out how each school will benefit by going to by www.pgcps.org.
Right.
If you have /promise.
Right. We also want you to know that council will be voting on this budget. So I'm sure each and every council member, not just yours, would like to hear from you.
Oh, okay.
So please express your opinion, and I will be up here to answer questions until they sweep me out.